Warning: the radio broadcast you're about to hear was made by men and for men. It may at times seem a little rough around the edges, brash, and certainly not canonically approved by papal authority. But its content may indeed challenge you to become the man, father, husband God has called you to be. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to this week's episode of The Obligation. My name is Jason Murphy, and I'm so glad you're here. We have a special treat lined up for you in anticipation for the upcoming Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas on March 5th at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church in North Charlotte. Today, we have one of the most recognized names in Catholic apologetics, who even spent 6 years in formation for the Catholic priesthood. But his background isn't what you might think. Born a Southern Baptist who fell away from faith in his teens, he began making his way to Christ through the witness of Christian televangelists, including the likes of Billy Graham and Jimmy Swaggart. He then joined the United States Marine Corps and met one solid Marine who knew his faith and began challenging his fellow soldier to become a true warrior for Christ. He is now a senior apologist for Catholic Answers, fixture on the EWTN television and radio network, author, and keynote speaker for this coming year's Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas in Charlotte. Tim Staples, welcome to The Obligation.
It is great to be with you, and thanks for having me, brother.
Absolutely. So glad you're here, and really looking forward to you to speaking to the guys here. And less than 2 weeks away, I believe, right now.
Yeah, it'll be here before you know it. It comes up quick, doesn't it?
It does, and I sweat bullets. Like it gets down to like the last couple of weeks, and I'm sweating. I'm running around, and I got the ticket tailor, and I get the alerts. So I'm swiping and refreshing the screen, and inevitably it always works out. Guys show up, and as long as if we reach one guy, we've done what we needed to do. But I think we're gonna have a great day, and looking forward to it. I found out one interesting thing when I was doing a little research. We have a shared place in common, and that's Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Baton Rouge.
Oh, my goodness.
And
yeah.
And you spent some time in Baton Rouge.
I sure did at Jimmy Swaggart Bible College. A few years back, I did a conference there in Baton Rouge, and that was awesome. Some of the guys there drove me over to the campus, and I got to see it's all run down now.
Yes.
Parts of it sold and all that. But I actually went over there, and I wanted to see if I could run into Brother Swaggart, but he was not home at the time.
Yeah. So I think you were there around 1988.
Correct. Well, and 87. Yeah.
Okay. So I was there I was 7th or 8th grade at the time, but for whatever reason, and I've got my own story, but we were kind of nominal Catholics. We divorce had hit the family. Things weren't that good. But one Easter Sunday, my mom decided to take us to Jimmy Swaggart Church.
Wow.
for Easter Sunday services, and that was interesting.
The Family Worship Center.
Yes. Yeah. And then, back then, I mean, I remember in high school, we used to just we'd take our 4-wheel drives, and all that was just vacant land, because it just, once the I have sinned statement came out,
right.
It was just all kind of downhill, and all the buildings sat vacant. I think now the big high rise is a hotel.
That's right. I stayed in it.
Did you? Oh,
I actually stayed. I was once a student in that dorm, and I couldn't believe it. They put me, the guys that I did this conference at Baton Rouge, they put me up in that.
Wow.
And I'm looking out of the window in my hotel room, and I can see the Family Worship Center right there. I'm going, oh my goodness, I was a student here, and now look what's happened. It was really wild.
How things change, right? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I just talking about it the other day, my own path, just reflecting back and looking back, and just so much thankfulness and gratitude, and
Amen.
and just taking that ride. when I'd mentioned I had talked to Dr. Ray the other day, and it sounds like I'd always consider myself a convert of sorts, but he kind of coined a phrase, and he may have taken it from someone else. I don't know, but I'm taking it now, the revert. So I'm definitely a revert, because I kind of went one extreme and went, the other, and came back, and thanks be to God, things worked out. And, involved here with the men's conference, doing this radio show, 6 kids later, married 17 years. My wife's a convert. So, we're doing what we can.
Yeah, but we've got 7 here, 7
okay.
kids. And we've been married 21. We're coming up on 22 in August.
Congrats. Awesome. Yeah. It's a wild ride. Nothing I was quite prepared for, but I turned that wheel over a long time ago. So
praise God.
And it's a beautiful life. It's a busy, crazy life, but it is wonderful life for sure. So I was curious, how that who inspired you? So who was watching Jimmy Swaggart? Who was watching Billy Graham? That kind of was that kind of had that role there, that influence.
Well, you know what really started it for me was my mom, who would take us to church when I was a kid, Boulevard Baptist Church in Falls Church, Virginia. And we were not exactly every Sunday Christians, but we would go from time to time, certainly Christmas and Easter, and Mom always wanted to get us there. And well, when I was about 8, we started going regular. And then when I was 10, I accepted Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior. I was baptized, and it was Easter Sunday of 1974. I was 10 years old, where I really had an experience with the Lord. And I had already started watching Billy Graham. Billy Graham was really the spark, along with my pastor, Pastor Eugene Foreman, who was a great man, a man of God, just loved Jesus, loved us. He was just an incredible pastor. And I loved watching him preach, but we had a group from my church that went to a Billy Graham crusade. And when I saw Billy Graham, man, I was just, wow. He lit me up. And from that time on, as Mom would tell you, anytime he was preaching on TV, it was often on WTTG Channel 5 there in Washington, D.C. As I lived in Northern Virginia, I'd be right in front of that TV watching Billy Graham. And the thing about him, of course, it's that same basic message, but he presented it so well, so powerfully. He projected so well. And I was just hooked. I wanted to be a preacher like Billy Graham and Eugene Foreman. Now, unfortunately, I got away from my faith, as you know, in my teen years, but Jimmy Swaggart was the one who caught my attention in my teen years. Jim Baker also, but Jimmy Swaggart in a particular way, because he had that fiery presentation, and I was really hooked, started supporting his ministry and the PTL club, and I got my mom involved, and then my family, and we were all getting saved, and it was wonderful. It was transformative, because I had fallen way far away from God, and I'm grateful to God for Jimmy Swaggart and the televangelists, as you mentioned, because they did bring me back to faith in Jesus Christ. And I know Jesus Christ met me, and my life was transformed. And so from there, man, it was just like a rocket ship. Yeah, I joined the Marine Corps, but I always had an eye on ministry while I was in the Marines. My plan was to leave the Marine Corps and then go into full-time ministry. And it was there, as you know, that last year in the Corps, I did a 4-year tour, and that last year I met Sergeant Matt Dula, a Catholic who knew his faith, Opus Dei, schooled he and his 7 siblings, all rock solid Catholics, man, from Chicago. And I met him. He rocked my world. He caused me to really start studying Catholicism, and I began trying to study it to disprove it. I was determined I was going to disprove it. I wanted to write the book to end all books, to just show the evils of Catholicism. And basically, that's what led me to the Catholic faith. I left the Marine Corps and I went on into ministry, but I kept studying Catholicism and again, trying to disprove it, but more and more. By the time I went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College, I had read too much Catholic stuff, and I became a thorn in the side to the professors there because I found myself trying to debunk it, but at the same time, I'm learning so much. I end up arguing with professors and found myself defending the Catholic faith, which is not a popular thing to do at Jimmy Swaggart Bible College.
No.
But I did until finally the truth just overwhelmed me. Not that Jesus takes away our free will, of course not, but the truth just drew me. I saw it, I gave up everything, and I followed Jesus. And I tell you, brother, at first I thought, what am I going to do now? My whole life is turned upside down. My family thinks I'm crazy, but you know what? Over the years, my whole family became Catholic, and God just took me. And as you know, and as you mentioned, I ended up studying for the priesthood for 6 years, decided not to be a priest. And my 7 kids all agree I was not called to the priesthood. And my wife agrees. I was not called to the priesthood, and here I am as a Catholic apologist. It truly is, as you mentioned, brother, Frank Capra had it right. It is a wonderful life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's amazing, really. We let go and let God, and the path sets us on. So that's amazing. You speak of, with Billy Graham, I'm pretty sure his first church is less than a mile from where we live here. In Charlotte. And then I don't know if you've ever been to his museum, the Billy Graham Museum.
I would love to go. No, I haven't.
It's down by the airport. It's a really nice place. They've done a really good job with it. They actually have, I guess, the house he grew up in. They've moved it there, and a lot of the things that were on the property. And they've got big barns set up, and they've got all his stuff throughout the years. So it might be worth your while if you have some time while you're in Charlotte to check it out.
Oh, I hope I have time. I tell you, I still love that man. And I can remember particular messages. I remember, I think it was in Cincinnati, he was preaching one time, and that famous, America doesn't have a political problem, doesn't have a money problem, America has a heart problem, right?
Oh, yeah. Beautiful,
and of course, he would say that in many different ways and such, but it has a heart problem. And the only one who can change that is Jesus, because he gets inside and he transforms the heart. No government can do that. No legislation can do that. Only Jesus can do that. That's such a powerful and perennial message that we as Catholics, of course, need to get back to in the day and age. And that's going to be the message. My message for these men coming up is that, some trust in princes, right? Some trust in political parties or politicians. I will trust in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now I'm adding Jesus there from the Old Testament.
Amen.
The point is that it's easy to start taking so much of our time and attention and getting into so many things that ultimately don't matter, or certainly can't really answer the deepest longings of man. And if we don't get that right, we're not going to get anything right. And this has got to be our focus. Evangelism in the Catholic Church, as Pope Francis, I think, wonderfully said it in his Evangelii Gaudium, just a powerful message there of evangelism, where Pope Francis goes through every strata of civilization and the culture. And basically his message is we've got to evangelize all of it.
Absolutely.
And transform the world from the inside out.
Yeah. I was speaking to Dr. John Aquaviva, who will be another one of the speakers, and he does a show called Faith and Sport. And he, reflects on, the importance of fellowship and morals and ethics, but also bringing our faith to the field. So we were discussing that the other day, but just in a broader spectrum, us, like to your point, us Catholics need to bring our faith to the field, but not just in sports, but in everything we do. And for some reason, unlike the, our non-denominational or, non-Catholic brothers and sisters, they are very good about that. They're very good in laying out their testimony and inspiring and going more further out than Catholics for whatever reason. So,
amen. Hey, you're taking part of my message again that I'm going to be sharing with the men. I'm going to talk about masculine and feminine spirituality and how in evangelicalism, evangelicalism, there's a very masculine theology that is, let's go out and take the world for Jesus. That's so much of the emphasis. Traditionally in the church, we have a certain primacy given, and there's a reason for that, to feminine spiritual life. Of course, the Blessed Virgin Mary being the greatest human person that's ever walked the earth. And there is a certain primacy to the idea of feminine spirituality, meaning, like the Blessed Mother, we need to passively receive. And women have that great gift, Jason, of being able to receive better than you and I, because it's the way their bodies are made. That's why there's more women in church than men, right? But I mean, so in a sense, we need to learn from the Blessed Mother, learn from women what it is to really be man, in the sense of man who understands he needs to receive from outside of himself in order to be empowered to accomplish what he needs to accomplish. But here's the point. I think we've been over feminized in our culture, and to a loss of a sense of true masculinity. And that's what I'm going to talk about, what that means. And this, because look, this is the bottom line. A culture, it's only a culture because of the influence of the feminine, to be sure. I mean, without the feminine, Jason, you and I are running around throwing spears at each other. Okay, I mean, we need the feminine. But a culture is only as strong as its men. A church is only as strong as its men. And this is what we have been lacking for the last 50, 60 years. But I see signs through men's conferences all across this country that I speak at, that this is changing in our Catholic culture. Men are beginning to rise up and act like men. And I'll tell you what, the devil is scared to death when that happens.
No, you're right. You're 100% on point with that. Yeah, we have sort of just kind of stepped out, and unfortunately, a lot of men just think, well, that's the women's duty, the religion, the faith, the spirituality, and that is so far off the mark, if we don't lay it down.
Absolutely, and culturally, we're being obliterated. The problem, of course, is in the church, but the problem is culture-wide. The bottom line is we're reaping the harvest here of a loss of masculinity, the destruction of the family, which is the building block of civilization and the building block of the church. And again, just as I said, a culture, a church, well, the family is a family because of the influence of the feminine, to be sure. But a family as well is only as strong as its men. And there is so much data, as Dr. Ray will tell you, when you don't have a man in the house, the chances of the children persevering in their faith go through the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And God bless the single women who try to do their best, but without the man, it devastates the family as well as the faith. But when you have a man in the family who is a strong man, it is the most transformative. It is really the first principle of life in the family, the man. And this is what we got to restore. And Jason, that's why I'm so blessed that you are continuing the fight, man. Go through. I know it's difficult getting all the pieces together to do these conferences, but man, God bless you, because you are going to be, and you already are being blessed as a result.
I appreciate it. I get asked, why do I do it? And because I need it too. I got away from it for a few years. I got busy. I used every excuse that every guy used, I have too much work, or the kids, it's too much. We have too many activities. And you know how it is. One excuse leads to another. And before you know it, you're a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you've stopped going to the men's conferences, or you've stopped, whatever practices. And,
you stop praying.
Yeah.
When you stop praying, you cut yourself off from grace, and every kind of mess is going to follow. And this is why we need each other as men. We need these conferences to encourage each other. Because if you stop, like you said, you stop going, well, I'm not going to go this, I'm not going to go, and then you stop praying, you're lost. And without Jesus in your life, man, you can't do anything. What did Jesus say in John 15:5, right? Apart from me, you can do nothing. He didn't say some things, right? He said nothing.
Yeah. No, those are great words. I mean, our motto for the men's conference, of course, iron sharpens iron. We know that, the knife gets dull after it gets used for a year. So here we are, another year around, ready to go back to that grindstone. I saw something the other day. It said something about, knives aren't sharpened by, don't hang around with butter knives. I can't remember the premise exactly what it was, but if you're, if you're not being sharp, you're not feeling sharp, you're getting a little dull, you're probably hanging out with the butter knives. So
that's right. Because a butter knife isn't going to sharpen your knife. You need a rock.
Yes. Yeah. And that's our Lord. So, and then our theme this year is Quo Vadis, where are you going? The Road to Emmaus challenge there for guys. We try to give them, something thought provoking. Where are you going in your life? Where are you taking yourself? Where are you taking your family, your kids? So we're super excited to have you there. I know, Dr. Ray Garundi, who you're familiar with, he's going to be there with us.
Bud.
Yes. Dr. Ray's great. And I think I told you before we got on, Keith Nestor. Keith was an evangelical minister for 20 years and converted. So he is on fire. He has a rosary called the Rosary Crew, and they pray the rosary daily online wherever they go, and it's broadcast out. So he's got this huge following, people coming back to the rosary and Our Lady. Dr. John Aquaviva from Faith and Sport, and of course, Bishop Jugas, the priests, seminarians, the diocese. There'll be confession all day. That's one of the most beautiful signs that I see. One of the most gratifying things for this event is when you show up and you've got, at first it's quiet. You got a couple little priests in the corners of the church, and then slowly that first guy goes, and before you know it, all day you've got these guys going into confession, and it's such a beautiful thing. That is such an important part of my reversion and my faith walk was confession. Amen. So it's a beautiful thing to see guys, coming back to our Lord and casting that burden off.
Oh yeah, I've been a repeat speaker at a lot of men's conferences around the country, and there's just nothing like hearing the testimonies. Man, I came to this conference, I didn't really even want to come. A buddy of mine kind of dragged me.
Yeah.
And I got there and I found myself in confession, and it changed my life. I mean, my goodness. You can never hear that too many times, but that's what happened. Or you have guys that are, I was going to church, I was doing all the right stuff and doing the right stuff, but I really didn't have the fire in my life. And man, this conference just transformed. I'm telling you, man, these men's conferences are transformative, especially the way you guys have got it set up. You got to be focused on the Eucharist and confession like you guys are. Get ready. It's going to be a blessing.
Well, it's coming, a few short days away. So out there, if there's anybody who hasn't signed up, Tim, what can you say? What can we get? What can we tell them?
I will challenge you to come, and I'll guarantee you this. You come to my talk and you're going to learn something. All right. I will guarantee you that. But you have a whole lot of other speakers that are going to be giving messages. And most importantly, the Holy Spirit is going to be speaking through us. I know I'm praying. I know they're praying. And I know you have a lot of men praying for this weekend that it would be transformative, that men would meet Jesus in a special way. So I'm going to challenge you. You come, and I'll guarantee you are not going to get out of there without being blessed and in a way you didn't even expect. So you come and mark my words.
Amen, brother. Yeah, I mean, I've always thrown it out there. No one's taken me up on it, but I always give the 100% money back guarantee.
Amen.
If you weren't inspired and you didn't learn anything and you're not a better man for it, then I'll buy your ticket back from you. And that still stands. So I'll do you one up on that. And if anybody, doesn't, but I guarantee you come there with an open heart and open mind, our Lord will speak to you. I mean, just giving up that day, putting aside everything else that we think we have to get done. It's the first week in Lent. If that's the only thing you do in Lent, do that. Get online, get a ticket.
You know what, Jason? You reminded me, you mentioned It's a Wonderful Life. And I remember seeing an interview with the great Frank Capra, the greatest movie maker to ever be in Hollywood. And he made the point about It's a Wonderful Life, that great movie, that we realized after we made it, that more came out of that than what we put into it. something special happened there, and it was divine intervention. In the same way, folks, you will find when you come to this weekend, things are going to happen, and everybody there is going to realize. Jason will realize it again, as he has over and over, and I have over and over, that man, a lot more came out of this than what we put in it, because God's there. And as Matthew 18:19 says, where 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And when Jesus is there, stuff happens. We just open ourselves up and we let God take over. And oh my goodness, it is an awesome ride.
Well, nothing more can be said after that. That's it right there in a nutshell. So guys, if you're out there and you haven't signed up, make sure you go online, www.catholicmenofthecarolinas.org. Use the promo code radio, save $5, get yourself a ticket. Mr. Tim Staples, it was a pleasure speaking with you. If guys wanted to read up, if you've got some books too, if they wanted to go online, what would be the best spot to find you?
Absolutely. Check out Catholic.com, of course. That's our Catholic Answers website. You can check out timstaples.com, and of course, Amazon. My book, Behold Your Mother, which is an exhaustive apologetic on the Blessed Mother. My book, Nuts and Bolts, which is a practical how-to guide for evangelism. Take you through 14 chapters, 14 different scenarios, evangelizing 14 different kinds of folks. And it's kind of a step-by-step, and we've got a whole lot more at Catholic.com as well. And I'll have stuff there available at the conference.
Awesome. It was great speaking with you, and look forward to seeing you for the conference, Tim.
All right, Jason. God bless you.
God bless. You know how guys are. We wait to the last minute to do anything, whether it's Christmas shopping, birthdays, anniversaries. You know how we do it. We wait to the very last minute. Well, it's coming. Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas, March 5th, 2022. St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church is just a few short weeks away. Need you to get out there and get those tickets, man. Need to see you in those seats. We have an incredible lineup, including Keith Nestor from Down to Earth Ministries. We have Dr. Ray Garunde from EWTN's own The Doctor Is In. Catholic Answers, Tim Staples, apologist, speaker, author, and our own Dr. John Aquaviva from Faith and Sport here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Join Bishop Jugas and the priests and seminarians of the Diocese of Charlotte for a day of fellowship and prayer. Confessions will be heard all day. Gentlemen, this is a great reset. If you've pulled away, gotten lazy, need a kick in the bottom, need to get back moving in the right direction, this is what the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas is all about. Go online right now, www.catholicmenofthecarolinas.org. Use the promo code radio and save $5, and we will see you there. Be a better father, be a better husband, be a better Catholic, be a better man. God wills it. God bless, and Esto Vir.
Did you know that 90% of older adults wish to stay in their home as they age? Aging in place has many benefits. It tends to improve quality of life, which in return improves physical health. Also, retaining independence as we age is critically important to our mental health. Hi, my name is Meredith Stignan, and I am the president of Harmony Home Solutions and an active parishioner of St. Patrick Cathedral. We are your trusted partner for aging in place. We strive to enhance the lives of older adults and their families by providing premier aging-in-place and universal design lifestyle solutions that increase safety beautifully. Now is the time to get your aging-in-place plan in order with Harmony Home Solutions. Visit our website today at hhsclt.com. Again, that's hhsclt.com. Or give us a call at 980-220-8821. Again, that's 980-220-8821. We want to help you live an empowered and beautiful life.
My name is Jason Murphy. So glad to have you here. We are sitting down with Keith Nestor from Down to Earth Ministry. Keith is a convert, author, and one of the upcoming speakers at the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas on March 5th. He's involved in many different ministries, including Catholic Feedback Podcast and Rosary Crew, a community dedicated to praying the rosary every day. He's a former pastor and youth pastor with more than 20 years in full-time ministry with the United Methodist Assemblies of God and Evangelical Free Churches. After a 20-year-long discernment process, Keith resigned his full-time ministry position and joined the Catholic Church. We're honored and privileged to have him here with us today. Well, Keith, thanks so much for joining us today. Look forward to chatting with you.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, Jason. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Super excited to have you on. March 5th coming up for the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. We've got you on board as one of our speakers. Just super excited to hear more about your journey and share with the guys here in our diocese. One of our guys who's helps out with the men's conference, Jerry Nimberg, he actually mentioned that I guess he had heard, or maybe had been to one of your talks, Marcus Grote's Journey Home program.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember that one. That was a big honor for me to go there because that was a program that I had watched many episodes of when I was learning about Catholicism, even initially. So it was a real surreal experience to be sitting across from Marcus talking about that.
Where was that held?
Their offices are near Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Jerry mentioned that, and thankfully, we were able to get you, and I know you got a great story to tell. I know a little about you. I've read up a little bit, and I got to say, looking on your site here, I don't know if you're familiar with Mayhem from the Allstate commercial.
Yeah.
So I thought that was Mayhem at first. There's an image of you, I guess, on your site there, kind of banged up and bruised. Tell me a little bit about that image there.
So the way that came to be was, I used to be a photographer, and after I left my job in the ministry, as a pastor, my wife and I had a photography business, and we were working in the business one day, and this guy walked in off the street who I sort of knew who he was. He was a member of my old church, and he's a producer. He's like a video producer for different like instructional videos for companies. And he said, "Hey, I'm doing a parody of Mayhem for this company in town, and I thought you would kind of look like him if we dressed you up like him. So would you be willing to come and read the script and let us film you for this company-wide industrial security video or whatever?" And I said, "Sure." So we had one of our makeup artists come in and do that. So I went and filmed that.
Okay.
And then I came back and I had to work the whole rest of the day. So I came back to the studio and my wife was like, "Oh, we have to take your picture." So she took my picture. And then it was kind of funny. I just left it all like that. And I worked the rest of the day looking like me. So people were coming in off the street, and I was just kind of like that. And everyone's like, "What is going on?" So I thought that was just kind of interesting in light of the journey sometimes it can be to make that transition and what it can be like when you're wrestling with God through things. So it just sort of became my trademark for a little while. I haven't used it too much in a while. It's my Twitter profile pic, but I haven't really used a whole lot of it since, because it's funny, many people think of the Mayhem, but a lot of people don't understand any of it. They're like, "Why are you beat up? Did somebody hurt you?"
Well, I mean, it sort of does tell the story of a journey, of a Christian's journey in this world, for sure.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, you got your battle beads there. I got mine sitting right next to me too.
Absolutely.
They're always right next to me. I know you've got kind of a rosary ministry that
Sure.
you kind of began and.
Yeah. So when I first became, or was, on the road to becoming Catholic, I'd already made the decision that I was coming into the church, but I wasn't sure quite yet what I was going to do with the rosary. And I decided to start praying the rosary every day, just all by myself. And so I began to do that. And then in the pandemic, the very beginning of the pandemic, March of 2020, things were beginning to shut down. And I just did a little live stream on my YouTube channel at the beginning of the shutdown, just to kind of see how everybody was doing out there. And someone, I don't even know who it was, I can't even remember, someone commented in the live chat of the live stream, "Keith, we should do a rosary live on your channel tomorrow." And so I thought, well, I'd never led the rosary before, and I was really intimidated about doing it because I was still learning it, and I know there can be different variations, especially like some of the ending prayers and how you do different things. I thought, what if I don't do it right? But I thought, I can do this for 14 days. Remember when it was 14 days to slow the spread?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I'll figure this out. So the next day, it was March 18th, 2020. I jumped on YouTube and did this live stream praying the rosary, and we've never stopped. It's been this incredible thing. We're closing in on 2 years of every single day praying the rosary live on my YouTube channel. And it's gotten to the point where now we are broadcasting to multiple Facebook pages. I started a brand new YouTube channel that is just for the Rosary Crew. That's what we call it, the Rosary Crew.
Awesome.
My wife and I travel the country in our RV, which when we show up to your place, we're going to be driving the RV. We'll be arriving after having been gone for a month, going from city to city, praying the rosary and live streaming that every day. It's in 80 countries, and thousands of people every day tune into our rosary to do that. So it's just been an incredible thing that I never saw coming, but the Lord and Our Lady had a plan for what we were to do in 2020, because all of my, traveling and speaking basically shut down in one day, like for a lot of people. This has become a huge component of our ministry, and I've seen miracles happen. I've seen it. It's just incredible, the community that we have around this all over the world praying the rosary every day, and I couldn't be happier.
Very impactful.
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely, as Padre Pio said, a weapon for our times, and it's changed my life completely. You can become a Catholic when you're a Protestant. You go to become a Catholic, and you think to yourself, okay, some of the things, that I've seen, like, am I going to do everything? Am I going to do all of the Catholic things? I mean, am I going to be one of those guys that prays the rosary? And you don't know that.
Yeah.
But then when you decide, and I remember feeling like, okay, I don't want to limit what I can do, or what God can do in me in this. I decided, I'm like, I want everything that the Lord has for me in this. And that was one of the first things I grabbed a hold of. And it's incredible. That's usually when people talk to me and are like, hey, I want to grow in my faith, or I'm struggling with this. That's sort of like, beyond the main things. Are you in a state of grace? Are you going to reconciliation? Are you receiving the Eucharist? Yeah, I'm doing all those things, but what do I need to do? I'm like, pray the rosary every day and watch what God does in your life. It's just an incredible thing.
It's great advice. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're talking to Keith Nestor from Down to Earth Ministry, one of the speakers from the upcoming Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas on March 5th, and we'll be right back.
2022 is bringing many new and exciting changes to our Carolina Catholic Apostolate, built to communicate how to better learn, love, and live our Catholic faith. We begin with our name change to Carolina Catholic Media. This reflects the expanded scope of Carolina Catholic Radio to include the development of our podcast, streaming, social media, YouTube, and direct marketing platforms. 2022 is a very important year for the Catholic Church. As a result, Carolina Catholic Media will feature more local news, information, and conversation to reflect what's happening now and how it impacts our local Catholic community. Throughout the year, Carolina Catholic Media will showcase our Catholic schools and homeschools, the Charlotte Diocese 50th anniversary, and the 2-year worldwide synod process that begins on the diocesan level. We encourage you to get involved, join us, and catch the spirit. The Carolina Catholic Media Apostolate is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are 100% funded by you. Please consider a donation, monthly tithe, or business sponsorship to support our mission and vision to spread the truth of Jesus Christ and our Catholic faith across the Carolinas. Thank you for discerning a role in our apostolate. May God bless you abundantly.
All right, we're back with Keith Nestor, Down to Earth Ministry, here talking to us a little bit about his journey. Keith is with Down to Earth Ministry and the Rosary Crew. We've been talking a little bit about the importance of the Rosary. Keith, tell us a little bit about your journey, your conversion story. How did that come to be?
Well, basically, I was raised in a Methodist church. My dad is a pastor, or he's retired now. So I grew up going to church, but I had no understanding of Catholicism. Like, that was not on my radar at all. And not really until I was in ministry. working with a bunch of youth, and I met a guy who was Catholic. Now, my wife was raised Catholic, but she was one of those Catholics that never went, even though she was 12 years Catholic school in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So she had the whole deal, but like the family never attended mass. They maybe Christmas and Easter, likely that was probably it. Faith wasn't a big deal to her. So when she met me and I said, hey, let's go to this church. She said, well, I'm Catholic. And I said, forget about that. So I pulled her pretty much out of the Catholic faith, even though she had no real, connection to it beyond just going to school. And so to me, it was always like the Catholic Church was this thing that was disconnected from real Christianity, from evangelical Christianity, from Bible-based Christianity. Like, this is in my mind. And I had no desire to really ever explore it, because to me, it was pretty much the opposite of everything I was doing. So what happened was I finally met a person who was Catholic and on fire for his faith, who had all sorts of things to talk about with me that I had never even thought about or considered or even really knew, because most people who are Protestants who don't know a lot about Catholicism, the stuff that they do know is, most of it, I'd say probably about 90% of it is just completely untrue.
Right.
So we don't help ourselves when it comes to that in the Catholic faith. A lot of Catholics say and do just basically a lot of dumb stuff that leads to a lot of these Protestant misconceptions. I mean, I was talking to a guy yesterday who is thinking about joining the church, and his wife is really having a hard time with it because all of her Catholic relatives, they go to like psychics and mediums and stuff like that. And she's like, that's not in the Bible. But there's a lot of people out there, Jason, that say, hi, I'm Catholic, but their lives and their beliefs have nothing to do with Catholicism. But here's the thing, right? I know I'm kind of getting off topic here.
No.
That's not just true of Catholics. That's true of Protestants too. It's true of everybody. A lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. But even if they're not Catholic, that doesn't really mean anything unless you really get to the heart of what they are. Because a lot of people say, well, yeah, I mean, I was a Methodist pastor, okay? And there were plenty of people in my town that claimed to be Methodists that never darkened the door of our church and that had no clue of what our church taught or what the Bible said or anything. So it's not just a Catholic thing, but it seems like it's especially a Catholic thing. So like a lot of other people, I had all these misconceptions. And when I met somebody who could not only explain them to me, but really challenge some of my thinking, it opened up this relationship that lasted, many, many years until eventually I decided to convert. But it was a long process. It was a difficult process. I fought it almost every step of the way. And because, when you're a pastor, there's a lot on the line there. And it's not just, oh, well, can I move from my contemporary worship experience to a liturgical worship experience? I mean, that's all there. But when it's your livelihood, your career, your job, your identity, it's a tough thing to do. And it took a lot of time for me. But eventually I came to a place where I knew the Lord was absolutely calling me into this. And I had to decide what I was going to do. And in 2017, I made the decision to resign my position and enter the Catholic Church.
That's beautiful. That's great. My wife actually converted prior to us getting married. She was like, oh, I'll never be Catholic. That'll never happen. And, God obviously puts his target, where he'd like, and he goes after. And certainly she not only became Catholic, she began teaching in a Catholic school, and we now have 6 kids, and we worked in RCIA together. So God definitely hears what we say, and man proposes and God disposes, right? So certainly interesting way that things work out. Now at the men's conference coming up, we have Tim Staples from Catholic Answers, and I think he's another convert, right?
Yeah. It's funny because Tim was a youth pastor in Assemblies of God Church. I worked for an amount of time as a associate pastor in the Assemblies of God Church. So while I was doing other I'm kind of a mutt of Protestantism when it comes to what I've done. I spent most of my time in the Methodist Church, but I've also been in evangelical free churches and Assemblies of God. So I've kind of been around. But yeah, Tim, it's funny because I went to hear Tim speak very early on in my exploration of Catholicism, because my friend that I was telling you about, invited me to come to a parish mission where Tim was going to be the speaker. And I remember he showed up and he had this black shirt on with these big white letters that said "Proud to be Catholic." And I remember I'm thinking, I got to listen to this guy, because I knew he had been an Assemblies of God youth pastor, and I was a youth pastor at the time. And I was like, all right, let's hear what he has to say. And I mean, we all know Tim is an amazing guy when it comes to his conversion and talking about the faith. So yeah, I remember that from back in the early days of listening to Tim.
Then shortly after your conversion, I guess you got into, you wrote a book, right?
It's called The Convert's Guide to Roman Catholicism, Your First Year in the Church. And I thought to myself, and it was literally a week after my first year had been completed. And I thought, I've read a lot of books about why you should become Catholic. I've read a lot of books about Catholicism. I've read a lot of books about, the things you need to know to be Catholic. But I hadn't ever seen or read any books about what it's like to be Catholic. Now, that might seem like a weird distinction, Jason, but it's a real distinction, because you can learn all this stuff in your head and you can be convinced of it, but that's a different thing from the experience of making the conversion from being Protestant to being Catholic. And so I wrote this book that's like a real down-to-earth walk through as a new convert. What should you be doing in your first year? What should that first year look like? So everything from how do you tell your friends and your family that you're becoming Catholic? What should you do? What should you not do? Yeah. How do you find a local church to attend? Which devotions should you pray or participate in your first year? Because here's the thing, when you become Catholic, everyone is coming up to you, throwing this devotion at you, that devotion at you. You need to do this, you need to do that. And you want to do all the things, but it's so overwhelming. Absolutely. It can be tough to know what to do. And you can easily get buried in all of the books, all of the prayers, all of the devotions. And so what I wanted to do is just sort of say to people, hey, year one, here are the things you should be looking at and working through. And so I wrote this book. I completely self-published it. I didn't send it to any publishers or anything like that. I just made it myself through Amazon and through that. And then I gave a talk at my church after my first year. My priest was like, all right, I think we're ready to hear your story, So I gave my talk at the church and it got put on YouTube, and then it kind of just ballooned from there to people heard this. And then next thing I know, I was going on the journey home with Marcus Grodi, and then getting all these invitations to come and speak and to write. And the book started doing pretty well. And that just opened up a lot of doors. And then I started making more videos on YouTube. And that is ultimately what led me to this place of starting this ministry Down to Earth, where I thought, okay, I need to take this more seriously now. This is like a thing. And I really felt like the Lord was saying to me, now is the time, I'm not done with you yet. You gave up that ministry to come into my church, and now I'm going to use you in a different way. That's where I had to be. And I tell people all the time, like, look, when you're ready to make the conversion to Catholicism, you have to do it without any strings attached. You can't say, well, I'll be Catholic, but I have to have A, B, Z, and whatever already lined up. And I have to, here's my plan for how I'm going to turn this into a ministry or a job, or forget all that. Forget all that. Just focus on Jesus. Focused on what it means for you to come into the church and experience it for that in and of itself. I had this very real moment. I'll talk about this at the conference, where I was face to face with the Lord, and I said, God, I'll become Catholic, but you've got to make a way. And the Lord spoke to me, and he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You don't need me to make a way. You just need me. And that was the night, man. I was like, boom, okay, I'm doing this, because the hardest part for me, there's so many of us, so many converts or potential converts that are at that point, Jason, of like, I'm ready to take the leap. I'm ready to do everything. But there's something holding me back that I'm not quite ready to either sacrifice or suffer. Yeah. Maybe it's a problem in their family. Maybe it's an issue with the job. Maybe it's something they have to deal with in their marriage, and there's something that they're like, I want to be Catholic, but there's this situation or this circumstance that's holding me back. And that comes to us all in different reasons. And what I find to be the case is it comes to all of us, even if when we are Catholic, God is always calling us into a deeper level of discipleship and obedience, but we've always got that thing that we're holding on to that it's sort of like our rich young ruler. Okay, but let me first go do this.
Absolutely.
And what God is calling each of us into is to let go of that to lay that down. And when we do, it's almost like on the other side of our obedience, there's this tremendous blessing that's there. Now, yes, suffering will come. Yes, hardship will come. I experienced all of that, and everybody will. But the beautiful thing about the Christian faith is our God brings us joy, not by removing us from suffering and hardship, but by working in us to walk with us through that and chiseling us and creating us as saints, refining us, regenerating us into who he's created us to be through those difficult times. And if we are always worried about, I'll follow you, Jesus, but only if I'm free from all that stuff, then we'll never become what he wants us to be. My book is for people who have already made that decision, and now they're working on what it looks like to come into the church. Now, there are some apologetics type things in the book as I help people get over some of the practical realities. For example, I have an entire chapter called The Mary Stuff. And that chapter is about how a new convert enters into a Marian devotion, coming from a place where that was completely discouraged. So that's a tough thing for converts. It's kind of like if you go over to your friend's house and you meet his mom. The first time that you meet his mom, you're probably calling her ma'am. You're very reserved. You're very like on your guard. But once you get to know her like very well and she's open and hospitable to you, you're going over to her house. You're going through the fridge. You're talking to her like, in a different way. Like for converts, they don't know what to do with that. So I have a chapter on, okay, how do you make that transition from being someone who only thought about Mary at Christmas to now, we have all of these Marian devotions. Yeah. So there are some apologetic things in the sense of helping people understand what they're doing, but I'm not like going through and knocking objections down. I'm already presuming that they've already made that decision. So I make that clear distinction even in the beginning of the book. This is not an apologetic book. This is not some theological manifesto. And that's why I say this is a different kind of book than anything I'd ever seen before, because everything I'd ever read as a potential convert was one of the two. It was either like a theological explanation of the Catholic faith, which is very healthy and helpful, or it was an apologetics book on why you should become Catholic, or let me explain to you the misconceptions. But what I never saw, and maybe it's out there, I don't know, I never saw like you're going to be Catholic. Here's what you need to do in the beginning, and here's how this is going to be, and here's what it's going to feel like, and here's some of the baggage you're probably going to bring with you and how you can work through that. And also, it's almost like a little bit of a translation guide. Like, here are some of the things the Catholic Church does that you're going to see, and you're not going to understand what that means. Like, I'll give you a quick example. When I first became Catholic, everyone's always talking about their prayer intentions. Okay. Their prayer intentions. We never used that word in the Protestant world. We always talked about your prayer requests. So when I would say to people, okay, here are my prayer requests, they would ask me, okay, well, we're going to pray for the Pope's intentions, or pray for his intentions, or pray for your, I was like, what are they talking about? What do they mean intention? Like, oh, well, that's just a word that means prayer requests. There are a lot of things like that culturally that are different. Like, here's another one. Like, why in the Catholic Church is there a higher emphasis placed on kids being in the mass versus being taken out to like a children's church or a nursery or something like that? When we were starting to go to mass, we were sort of thrown off by all of the kids in the service and all of the noise and everything like that. And we were like, why don't they have a nursery? Why don't they do something with the babies? Why are they always in here? We're trying to listen. We're trying to learn that. So I had to learn and understand there's a theological and practical reason for that. So it's kind of like those things that as Protestants we've experienced in our worship services and in our faith that are just different when you're a Catholic. Yeah. And talking and walking through that. Now, what's interesting is I've had so many cradle Catholics tell me that they love this book, that they're like, oh, I didn't think this book was for me, but I read it because I wanted to see what it was about. And this book helped me understand so many things and helped me think about my faith differently. And like, so I get a lot of encouragement from cradle Catholics when they read the book. It's not just for those people, but I think that it's important for people to understand, like, what am I trying to accomplish with this book? It makes a great book for like an RCIA candidate or someone who's first coming into the church, like a gift when someone joins the church, that type of thing. But it will also help people who are thinking about it, because you're going to see how I worked through some of those things. I interweave my own story in this book, and I talk about how I encountered some of these difficulties and how I was able to work through them, because my goal for this book is to help people not just make it through their first year, but to thrive and to have an incredible experience as a new Catholic so that they can continue to see that grow from there.
No, that's excellent. How, I would imagine in your, prior to conversion to Catholicism, was there any sort of communion service that was done? I know some of the
absolutely, all the time. Yeah.
And so I guess I imagine it probably was looked at the way I looked at communion, before I really, began practicing my faith. It was just kind of a symbolic, nice thing you did to, remember, the Last Supper perhaps, or how was that viewed? And then how did your eyes get open to really understanding, like, this is truly the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ?
Well, in the United Methodist Church, communion is called a sacrament, okay? But it's not viewed as a sacrifice. It's not viewed as the literal body and blood of Christ. We kind of go down the road of saying, well, Christ is present in some kind of mystical way, but it's a memorial. But it was never, practically speaking, it was never looked at like that, because, if that is truly the body and blood of Christ, then what do you do with it once the service is over? And the answer was, you throw it away, which you don't do that if you really believe that's Jesus. Okay. Sure. There was absolutely no type of fence around the service of communion in terms of who can receive communion. We practiced open communion, and we were very proud of that. It was like, hey, well, the Catholics are so closed off, but we're open. We don't care whether you belong to this church or any church, or whether you even really believe in Jesus. If you just want to come and experience this, you're welcome. So we had no concept of, what St. Paul talks about, of examining yourself and receiving unworthily. That just wasn't on the map. Okay. So that's some practical things, because it was viewed really as just sort of a memorial meal, a remembrance, not a participation in something, divine or real from the standpoint of the presence of Christ.
Right.
So that's kind of the Protestant way of looking at it for the most. Now, whenever you say that, you have to remember there's no one Protestant way. There's as much variety in Protestantism as you could find. You'll find Protestants that do believe it's the real body and blood of Christ, but they don't believe what the Catholics believe about it. So it's very open.
Yeah.
So for me to come to the place where I believed in the real presence of Christ, that was actually one of the first things that I encountered, where I was like, okay, wow. And of course, it's looking at John chapter 6 and recognizing what Jesus said in light of how that has been interpreted by the church fathers, and how that had been the universal teaching of the church for all of these years until it was, not really formally challenged, on a large scale until the Reformation. So what's the deal with that? Why did that change? But the problem that a lot of us Protestants had, and I know I certainly had, was we don't view it that way. We thought the default position of Christianity was our Protestant position. Mm-hmm. And that the Catholics somehow innovated and changed everything, whether it was at the Council of Trent or some other time in the Middle Ages, or even, later on in history. We looked at that and said, well, we have the true faith of the apostles in the Bible, but the Catholics changed it somewhere along the way. And when you realize that that's completely false, and that the opposite is true, that the Catholic position is the default Christian position, and the Protestants were the ones that innovated, that's when you have to start coming to grips with that in a new way. And once that happens, it's sort of just like one by one, you go through this list of objections and issues, and you go, yeah, okay, if I want to, follow the faith that was passed down from Jesus to the apostles, then I need to rethink some of these things.
Well, man, I think we're getting close to our time, but I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. If guys wanted to read up a little bit more about you and learn about the Rosary Crew, or get their hands on your book, what would be the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, my website is downtoearthministry.org, and the 2 is the number 2. So down the number 2, earthministry.org. I'm very active on YouTube. So if you just go to YouTube and search Keith Nestor, you'll find me. I do a lot of things on that channel. I do a weekly Bible study through the readings of the Mass, called Unpacking the Mass. I have a podcast called Catholic Feedback, but the website and the YouTube channel is kind of the main hub for all of these things. So that'd be the good place to go. And the book is available there. It's also on Amazon too, so you can check it out there.
Busy man. Want to hear more about Keith Nestor? Make sure to check out his website, grab that book, and we'll see him on March 5th at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church. And Keith, once again, I really appreciate you coming on The Obligation, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless. If you enjoyed this program and like to hear more of it, make sure to go online and check us out at www.carolinacatholicradio.org. Click that donate button, and we'd greatly appreciate it. There are also many opportunities to sponsor the show, the radio station, and the Catholic Men's Conference. Join Sensus Fidelium, Harmony Home Solutions, and Wallach Investments, who have pledged their funds to help keep Catholic radio on the air and relevant. Sensus Fidelium is a collection of Catholic homilies, apologetic videos, and other resources to grow in one true faith. They can be found online at www.sensusfidelium.com. Wallach Investment, LLC is a strategic moral investing firm committed to placing their clients' interests ahead of their own. Their mission is to be a force of good in their relationships to make the most of their clients' investment, giving them the time and confidence to pursue their mission. Contact Daniel Wallach at www.wallachinvestments.com for more information. For the Obligation Radio Show, the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas, and the Carolina Media Network, my name is Jason Murphy. God bless, and Esto Vir.